Hello and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. It is time now for today's Talkback segment. Each day we post a question on Court TV's social media pages. We gather your comments and questions and respond right here on the show. Today we asked you, now that you know all the charges and possible lesser charges that Kyle Rittenhouse faces, is he guilty of any crimes? Of course, still with me, Los Angeles County Deputy Public Defender Philip Dube. Philip, let's get to our first comment of the day. It comes from Meadow. She says, if you truly watch this trial with an open mind like the jurors are asked to do, I don't think the prosecution proved their case and Kyle should be acquitted on the theory of self-defense. All right, Philip Dube, I want you to ring in. Now that we know lesser charges and different things of that nature, do you think there are any charges there that fit the bill here?
Well, I think we can all agree that he's going to be convicted of the weapons charge, which is fine because I believe it's a misdemeanor under Wisconsin law, and no judge is going to lock him up for that. Now, as to the felonies, I maintain that he still has a very strong self-defense. And, the bottom line is it's going to be in the jury's hands to decide. And I think they're going to have to put themselves in the mind of a 17-year-old at the time who went there with good intentions. He wasn't recruited like, Rolf Gruber from the Hitler Youth, remember, in The Sound of Music,
Yeah.
Who was just going there to round people up and commit mayhem and torture. He went there with good intentions, and he didn't cross state lines with that gun. The gun was given to him once he was in Wisconsin. So he was trying to play the hero where the community failed everybody, or where law enforcement failed the community in terms of personal protection, businesses, and just in keeping the peace. So the public, including a 17-year-old, was left to their own devices to try to protect people and property. And he ends up in the middle of all this.
Yeah, I agree. And they came across him that night, and I think it's a serious offense on the police's part that they kind of said, okay, thank you for being here, rather than saying, buddy, you look a little young to be here. You don't need to be here. Why don't you get on out of here? Our next comment comes from Chad, and he says, at least lesser charges, he still shouldn't have been there in the first place and with an assault rifle. 2 people would still be alive if he would have stayed home. And I agree with that. And I think the nagging thing here is I think the individual incidents self-defense is certainly reasonable, a reasonable conclusion. But I do feel like he bears some responsibility. And my problem is, the fact that he was there, as we said, a young kid, shouldn't have been there, had a gun illegally, was doing whatever he was doing. He bears responsibility. I just don't know where the criminal responsibility lies.
Well, I think the real question is going to be, what would have happened to Kyle if he would not have shot or if he would not have had a gun? For all we know, he would have been the victim or a complaining witness to another crime, and somebody else would be on trial for victimizing Kyle. You have to understand, and viewers need to understand, that this was in the middle of an insurrection. That entire area was going up like Beirut. This was not, just your traditional shootout scene. The entire community was up in arms over the shooting of Jacob Blake. So people were taking to the streets. It was complete lawlessness and anarchy. So it's not a traditional situation where someone's just pulling out a gun. It was coming at him from all angles, like a game of Pac-Man.
All right, I say it this way. I say if he doesn't have the gun, I think the whole confrontation doesn't happen. I think their arrival on the scene, this militia, or whatever you want to call them, with those guns was antagonizing to everyone there. And they brought that attention upon themselves by being there with those guns. That's just my feelings. Coming up next, our comment from Brett. He says, innocent on all counts. That'll be the only just verdict, as plain as day, if you've actually followed this case closely. Again, it will be up to the jury ultimately, but some final thoughts on the case as we end up having to end the show shortly there, Philip.
Michael, I've given the facts of this case a lot of thought, and it's very possible that the jury just may nullify and say that this prosecution should have never been brought, that at most this belongs in the civil arena where people can seek redress to gain monetary relief for any injuries that they may have suffered, and that they just may cut him loose for being a hero.
Not far-fetched there, Philip. I truly appreciate you being on the show. As always, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm Michael Ayala.